I'm a feminist.
I'm a feminist.
And I'm a feminist.
I'm a feminist.
I'm a feminist.
I'm a feminist.
A feminist.
I'm a feminist.
And I'm a feminist.
I'm a feminist.
I'm a feminist.
I'm a feminist.
I'm Richard Steadman-Jones. I'm a senior lecturer in the School of English and I work particularly in the language and literature subject area. I think feminism is important because still, after all these years, women still do not have equality of opportunity and still women are subject to violence and abuse on the basis of their sex.
As a researcher, I work in the field of life writing studies, and if it wasn't for feminism, I'd have very little to do. And this is because feminism has been responsible for expanding the canon of life writing texts, for recovering different forms and genres, such as letters or diaries, that have been previously dismissed as private ephemera, as non-literary forms, and, I'm afraid to say, as feminine. And feminist critics are doing the important work of recovering these marginalised voices.
The response I would have would be, well, why wouldn't I be a feminist when being a feminist is someone who believes in equality of opportunity, of education, financial equality for 50% of the human race.
When I was younger, I didn't think I was a feminist, actually, and I think that's because I paid a lot of attention to stereotypes about feminism rather than finding out about it for myself. But when I did find out about it for myself, I realised it would be absurd not to be a feminist, really, not to want parity and equality between men and women, and so now I steadfastly am.
And why am I a feminist takes me back to the number one question I got while I was writing my PhD at the University of Glasgow, which was, why women? I was writing on two women writers in the late 16th, early 17th century, and I think particularly as a male academic, I was always forced to justify why I was writing on women writers as somehow needing an extra explanation. So I think that can be significant for the continuing importance of feminism.
Although I don't class myself usually as a feminist critic, a lot of my research is involved with sort of negating stereotypical differences between male and female authors and readers that have arisen in critical literature.
I don't think that being a feminist has to be, or is in any way, an aggressive act. I think what feminism boils down to, for me, is knowing that my genitals don't dictate my destiny, and that you're not better or worse for being a woman.
It's about equality. It's about men and women having equal rights in all areas of life. But it's an equality that also allows us to be an individual, to choose what you wear, how you look, how you act, without being considered inferior because of it.
In A Room of One's Own, published in 1929, Virginia Woolf said, "All women should throw flowers in the grave of Aphra Behn." Behn was a 17th century author who paved the way for women authors in the 18th, 19th, 20th and now 21st centuries to write. I'm grateful to all the women in the past who fought and struggled and made it possible for me to be a woman academic and author.
To quote Freud badly, right, anatomy is destiny, according to him. Now, I don't believe that, by which I mean I don't believe that a kind of an accident of birth, something chromosomal, way back when, before we even emerge, should determine the outcome of our lives socially, politically, economically.
Feminism helps us to understand difference, how categories of identity such as class, sexuality, age, disability, race and ethnicity, for example, how all these act together and intersect with gender to kind of circumscribe somebody's subjectivity.
To me, I think one of the most significant broader contributions of feminism and feminist theory is a questioning of the idea of the natural. Historically, patriarchy has relied to a great extent on a supposition that certain gendered identities or modes of gendered behaviour have some kind of basis in human nature. So in that mindset, it would be natural for women to stay in the home and natural for men to go out into the world and conquer and rule. But of course, it's not natural, it's cultural, and more specifically, it's ideological. And the significant thing about this conclusion is that it helps us to question other things that people tell us are natural, like, for example, capitalism. So you should never believe anything that anyone tells you is natural. And that's a really important thing that feminism has given us.
I think in our culture, linguistically and socially, there's still a tendency for male to be the default and for female to be the different, the other.
I need feminism much more than feminism needs me. It's taught me and it still teaches me that to change the world, you don't have to manipulate the world, but you have to, or you can, change the way the world is perceived, constructed in our minds and bodies.
Appearance is as much or as little a part of my individuality as is my intellect. They're two important items in my bag full of makeup.
What you want out of society is to get the best out of people, so society works most productively and people are contributing the best things that they can for the benefit of everybody. And as long as you've got inequalities between men and women, there's the possibility that men and women don't have equal access to doing the kind of things that they might actually be really good at.
I got taken to my first football match by my mum, got taken to my first cricket match by my mum. Used to play football with my mum, used to play cricket with my mum when I was a kid. I'm a massive sports fan, and I guess that's one of the biggest kind of masculine domains, but my mum kind of instilled in me from a very early age that just because it was me, her and my brother at home, I wouldn't miss out on anything. And I think from then on I realised that those kinds of reductive binaries between men and women and what men and women are supposed to do really weren't relevant to my life or to my mum's life or to my brother's life.
I thought quite hard about whether it's appropriate for a man to call himself a feminist or not. In some ways I think it's sort of an easy thing to say, and it's easy to say, well, I'm a feminist, without actually examining yourself and thinking about whether what you do and the attitudes you have are really supportive of women, or whether actually you're part of the problem. But generally speaking, I think it probably is a powerful thing for a man to say, I'm a feminist, because it needs to be seen that it's an issue that men need to take seriously and think about. And I think the men watching this video should think about that question, what it means to be supportive of women's equality, and what it means to take that word for yourself and make use of it of yourself.
Feminism for me is both my inheritance and it's my future.
I believe that in this century there shouldn't be that divide anymore.
I don't believe for one moment that we are more sensitive or better or that the world would be without war. What I do believe is that we should have an equal opportunity to run that world that we all live in. I think it's so important that the choices that we make aren't consistently held up to how a man would behave. And I think that my interest in shoes doesn't mean that my interest in romantic poetry is any less vital, important and central to the way romanticism is in the world.
Now, before all those post-feminists amongst you get too complacent and say this is already sorted, you're wrong. It isn't.
So it's about remaining alert to the phenomenon of language at all times and to see what is going on inside and beyond language. So it's about never blindly accepting the prevailing terms for anything.
So we need feminism to remind us of this, to remind us to be on our guard, to be vigilant against inequality and discrimination in all walks of life. So feminism really is for everyone.
The end.